we started noticing that our customers that we spent a lot more time developing identities for and building a brand that was built around who they were as a company, we started to notice that they were having exceptional growth. And it got me really excited, honestly, to be able to impact small business in that way, where if we do our job at the highest level, that's going to not only impact us and continue to get us their business, but it's also going to impact their businesses.
Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams.
All right, guys, welcome back to Building Great Sales Teams. Every now and then when I work with different clients, I have one I come across that really inspires me in many different ways. And in this case, today I wanted to introduce you guys to Danny Martinez. He is the owner of SFG Wraps and Ignited Soul Apparel. He's a partner in Simply Fresh Creative and Sunstoppers Network. And he's been a client with me for about a month now or so?
Yeah, about a month. We were circling around for a little while, but finally got a chance to work together.
Awesome, man. But it's gone great, and especially in our first conversation, you said something to me that really struck a chord with me, and I felt like our listeners on the podcast needed to hear it. And it's definitely all encompassing. It's part of your journey, but I wanted to point this out right away. And I think it's the fact that you're finding your purpose in serving your team and your customers versus these gross numbers that most people look at, or as many units as we can get through the shop or whatever the case is. Where did that come from, and how has it served you?
I think very early on, as I transitioned out of my previous career and I was looking for the road, I kind of made a commitment to, like you said, customers. I've always wanted, I started with building custom cars first and did that in my own personal life. And what ended up happening was, as I transitioned into growing SFG, I would always buy more film than was probably necessary as I was cutting my teeth. And it was really always about trying to put out the most premium product. It wasn't the fastest road to being, profitable and probably building a business at first. But I don't know. I feel like, you spend so much time building a reputation. I've been around the automotive community for so long. I wanted to make sure that anything that had my name attached to it, I could be proud of. And, we spent the last, 9 years now trying to do that with everybody we brought on, and as our team's grown, trying to hold that as a priority.
So I have done work for a few wrap shops now. And one of the things that really made you guys stand out was your design. Right away, as soon as I listened to and watched the first recording, as soon as you sent me that design deck, I was like, man, I would like them to design my logo. You know what I'm saying? And that's not something you think of when you think of a wrap shop, And so you guys have really transitioned from just being a wrap shop to being a creative company now. And I think that's important to talk about, especially on this show, because there are owners that listen to this show that want to figure out how to make more sales, right? And one of the things you and I are working on is making sure that your prospects understand there's a difference between putting a wrap on a car, or putting decals on a car, and then building a brand, right? And you guys are trying to make sure that every client that comes through your shop actually builds a brand versus just wraps their car. And the benefits of that are huge. And they have a KPI that makes a lot of sense to my listeners, because I talk about it all the time, which is cost per lead. And so if you have a brand that is well established, memorable, and legitimizes you to another degree than just your basic decals and phone numbers, then you can reduce that cost per lead. I guess, can you talk about that and how that's accomplished?
There's some great minds in the design space, and I listen and study a lot of them. And really, as the business started to be built, and we started with color, we had printers, we started doing traditional signage and lettering and things like that. And then as I studied more, I wanted our purpose to really be impactful. And we started noticing that our customers that we spent a lot more time developing identities for and um, building a brand that was built around who they were as a company, we started to notice that they were having exceptional growth. And it got me really excited, honestly, to be able to impact small business in that way, where if we do our job at the highest level, that's going to not only impact us and continue to get us their business, but it's also going to impact their businesses. Their teams will grow, their businesses will grow. And honestly, it's just been the thing that like drives me every single day is how can we make that impact? And it's a harder thing, right? Folks see lettering and other things on these vans, and it does help, but making it memorable, impactful, in some ways disruptive, uh, you're just going to be more memorable. Who does I mean, the answer to this. Who does most of the buying decisions in a household? It's rarely the husband. So these guys with these
Mhm.
trades companies, they built them to, I want this strong, bold uh, brand. When in reality, the guys who would be synonymous with that identity are typically not the people who are actually making the buying decisions.
Mhm.
And so once that light bulb clicked, we really started to transition away from that and try to pass that on to our customers and add value as best we could.
It makes so much sense. I think one of the things we joke about is the red, white, and blue decals. And
I'm a patriot, but
yeah,
yeah.
and at a very basic level, that works, right? But I think it's just like running over people on the sales side. It doesn't work anymore.
Mhm,
People see past it already. They're not going to get ran over. They're informed. We've got customers now that are educated, that maybe even know what type of film you're using, or like know how long it's going to last before they even get on a sales call with you because of
yeah.
Google. You know what I'm
And
saying?
and and what differentiates you when you actually show up to the job? We've
Hmm.
talked about, "Hey, is it okay for me to park my truck right there?" in one of our calls, and that, like, that's it, right? How you do one things, you do all things. So if you spend that much time and effort into making this van distinct and
Yep.
disruptive, how is that gonna impact your business?
That's what I've had a fun time with is I get to kind of coach your clients through you, you know? And so when we're putting together the script, like you said, one of the things we talked about was the memorableness and the legitimacy that a quality design provides you, right? And so it's been challenging because all right, what would normally be maybe a $4,500 purchase just for the wrap and a very basic design, right? Is now going to be a anywhere from 9,000 to $10,000 purchase for
Sure.
a brand refresh or a brand overhaul and the wrap, right?
Mhm,
And so how do we really display that impact to a customer? And so one of the ways that we were going to overcome a certain objection was to talk about your tech, AC company, plumbing company, even roofing, going to the door and for a preset appointment and being able to kind of step to the side and point back to the hey, it's Doug. I'm with XYZ air conditioning, and you point to the truck, and immediately you're memorable, right? Because not
mhm,
only is it a well designed wrap, but it's got a mascot on it. It's the name is prevalent, and all of a sudden, and then the logo on the truck matches the logo on the shirt, matches the logo on the hat, and like the legitimacy is just through the roof, right?
yeah, it's just not a guy in a tech uniform with a white van,
Yeah, exactly. And
which
so,
everybody starts somewhere. So I mean, I
yeah,
don't wanna take away from
yeah,
anybody.
yeah. But the point is to get the budget together to be able to build an actual brand, right?
One
And
and
so,
done.
what happens in that customer at the door is now your perceived value goes up. You're not just letters and a logo and on a decal. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm,
You're an actual brand and a company with legitimacy and Google reviews and a website. And when you see that, they have all the things. You know what I'm
mhm.
saying? And so there's a perceived value that comes with that. I feel like as soon as you show them the truck.
It's yeah, I mean, you think back to like the progression of marketing. Back in the day, it was billboards in the early 1900s, and then the radio came, and then it became jingles, and then television became commercials,
Mhm.
and now we've got, to me, one of the best values in marketing at all is through your vehicles, because they work your actual community. They're driving all around these neighborhoods, all these potential customers. So it just, you're top of mind. And if we did our job properly, you're memorable enough where when that need arises, it gets you there. And then also, heck, they do a Google search and they're like, oh, I've seen those vans,
Yeah.
and it just compounds. And that's really the key to building the brand, right? It's a combination of things as they almost snowball. The more
Mhm.
touch points you have, the more impressions you have, the more memorable you become, the more trusted you become, then sales come.
Absolutely. One of the things that I think I want to point out that you said right there is I've seen them before. So when
Mhm.
I go to Google and I search, AC companies in Newark, and and then your company comes up, and I've seen the van riding around, am I really going to look anywhere else?
I would say no if we did our
Yeah.
job properly.
Yeah, exactly. If the brand is popping, right? I'm not going to look anywhere else. I'm gonna be like, I remember those guys. I remember that mascot. I remember how that design made me feel in the moment. Like, oh, I would trust that AC company because they spend that much time on their brand. They spend that much time on their vans. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. If they care that
And
much about their vans.
they care that much about their vans and their brand. I want them to work on my house. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And so, and then it brings back that memory, So I think that's the biggest difference. And I'll get off this soapbox for now but I did really want to get deep into this. The biggest difference between decals and design, or I should say, great design, is that memorability. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm coining it if it's not memorability of a well-designed brand, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's huge.
And it's
Um,
and it's something, we were just talking about vision. It's an easy thing to, like, rally our team behind, right?
mhm.
And this is the company we've had. How many vans have we done for this customer now? Like, you guys have been doing a great job. We've impacted this business. Like, that to me is that act of service through what we do is probably the coolest thing.
There was a cool idea, well, not even an idea, I think you guys do this normally, but we were talking about, okay, a lot of dollars are left in your existing customer list, right? So naturally, if you do really well for a customer, especially in a fleet type sale, you're going to get their vehicles, and then as they grow, you're going to get more vehicles. And then we talked about, okay, well, what about in 3 years when the warranties for those vehicles are up, when weathering starting to take its toll, and they're ready for a refresh,
Mhm.
a new wrap, and so we need to be calling out to them, right? And then you and Gabriel were like, hey, why don't we go ahead and you've got a bunch of the die cast models.
Yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah.
going to wrap those and take them to them as a gift.
Mhm.
I mean, one of the things we talk about on the show a lot is giftology, and I think that's huge. But where did that come from?
Uh, I've seen a couple of my great mentors actually do something similar. So I
Mhm.
would love to say that I earned that one, but I've worked alongside and spoken to and been coached by some of the best guys in the industry that have given me nuggets here and there. And I watched, like I said, I'm a student of our industry, both the design and the marketing side, but also of the rap industry.
Mhm.
It's honestly, I was not a big student, but I'm so passionate about this now. I study everything everybody does. It's so interesting to me. So, but it's a great way to also just connect to your customers. Any opportunity, any touch point you have to continue building that relationship, right? It's invaluable.
So I probably spent 12 years building sales teams before I read I intentionally read a book about business, or I went to trainings or events or any of that stuff. For
Mhm.
whatever reason, it wasn't just a natural thing for me. And granted, I was like 31, 32 million into business at that point. You know what I'm saying? So maybe because I had success early on, I didn't feel the need to educate myself, which was a huge mistake. I realized that now, having educated myself for the last 2 years, and whether it be through intentionality or this podcast by talking to people like you. And, you've talked about mentors and coaches, and obviously you hired me as a consultant. Like, I guess, where did the understanding that, hey, I have to educate myself in order to grow come from? Or was that inspired? 'Cause I'll be
Uh,
honest, most most
yeah. Go
most
ahead.
car wrap companies don't. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Most trades don't.
Sure. Like, um, it's interesting because I didn't really have any real mentors to think about other than when I was younger and I was in church. I had some men who took me under their wing and let me
Mhm.
work with them during the summer. But through my 20s and things like that, until I found my way into the rap industry, I really didn't have many. And as I transitioned out of my previous career, I ended up going to a school for 3M down in Southern California. I met a gentleman by the name of Adam, and he kind of helped guide me early on. And then he had introduced me to other folks, and I continue to just build relationships. And I've been blessed enough that so many of them are some of the best guys in our industry. And as I started to learn and gain more knowledge from them. Then I started to look outside of our industry. And that's how I stumbled across you, doing a group with Chris Lee and his founders project and things. So now I'm just like, how do I get more?
Yeah.
How do I find more information? We talked about RBO and Apex in our last call. So I'm just trying to find the shortcuts and the things that aren't being thought about in our industry to be able to make myself better, so I can impact my team and my customers as much as I can. Um, it's almost a sickness. I can't seem to read all the books that I've been
Yeah.
acquiring and trying to get through. But it's been a great journey, and it's been super exciting.
Dude, I went way too hard when I first found self-development and I first found that community of entrepreneurs. Like, I went
Mhm.
to every event. I was running my business maybe 30% of the time and going to events and and learning 70% of the time. It became, like you said, this addiction pretty
Mhm.
quickly. 'Cause it's like you go your whole life not really understanding why you are the way that you are, and then you find a bunch of people that are just as crazy as you are, and all of a sudden you have this tribe, you know. And
100%.
now, my tribe spans 50 states and, hundreds of entrepreneurs, and it's just really cool to see, now that we've got the Building Great Sales Teams event coming up and all the support that we've got from that too. It's like you said, it's addicting for sure.
Yeah, and it's really refreshing. Like I said, I was never a big student, but when you get yourself around men or even women that have
Mhm.
similar belief sets, and are either usually achieving more than you, and it's inspirational. It starts making you realize that there's still so much to go. Sometimes you're so busy marching up that hill. One, you don't take a chance to look behind you and see how far
Mhm.
you've come, but two, sometimes you forget to keep working up and working, that you're not even close to your destination. You're not even close to all the things you can accomplish and the lives you can impact. And that's like I said, that's the most exciting thing. i'm
You're
still i'm
just
still
getting started.
relatively young. Exactly.
Well, speaking of just getting started, so one of the things that I definitely wanted to share was just to kind of encompass your actual brand and help everybody understand how awesome that is. Um, I wanted to show off your website a little bit, but can you kind of tell me about the history of SFG and kind of the evolution you guys have gone through? Because not only did this start with t-shirts, but it's becoming something completely different than I think you originally thought.
Yeah. Life happened. Some things didn't go the way that I had planned. I got my teeth kicked in, and around 2010, I was like, what am I doing? Where
Hmm.
am I going? And so I started looking for something to throw myself into and build and create. I'd wanted to do it since I was a kid, but life got in the way. So I started doing t-shirts and clothing, and then eventually met a friend of a friend who had a sign company. He kind of blessed me early on with a bit of knowledge about the industry. I kind of started seeing rapping coming through that 2013, 2014, and 2014 kind of came to a head. I saw the future. I could see miles ahead of me. and his path wasn't the same way. And so, we went our separate ways. He had all the experience as far as installation and production went. So like I sent myself down to LA to Burbank to a good friend of mine, Adam, and kind of learned just enough. Like I said, I saw the path, and then along the way, I picked up some designability, learned how to do more production, started doing weird things that not a lot of shops in the area have done. And it kind of just kept evolving and evolving. We started seeing the impact we had on our customers' businesses. And then, like with the mentorship, I'm like, how much more can I help? And then we started to build Simply Fresh Creative to actually help service our existing customers and other customers, to help them with their branding and then their web and SEO and on pretty much all their needs. So our goal is to help small to medium sized business. There's so much money coming into the industry right now, and I want to help small to medium sized businesses, fight the fight and learn some of the great tools that some of the bigger guys have access to, and hopefully make a massive change in our community. So yeah, this is what stinks about that is that's not even an updated website. We did that when during COVID. Gabe, my partner, who's my partner in Simply Fresh Creative, I was like, we never have time to do the website. As soon as COVID happened, we shut down for the first, however long. And I was like, now we go now. And so I spent a bunch of money I didn't have because we didn't really know what was going to happen at that time.
Yeah.
And man, I had a vision for it. Fernando helped me kind of hash it out design wise. And then that's what we got. But the work that we've done since then, honestly, has been life-changing. So we're updating it now. We've been putting together folders and compiling information and all the design work we've done and all the finished photos and testimonials from customers. So that's going to get a really good update here in the not too distant future. I'm going to have to put the pedal down because I know how big your podcast is and how many great business owners it reaches. So I put my best foot forward as fast as I can.
Yeah, 100%. No, it's going to be great. And again, we talked about how when you find that group and you realize, oh, there's a bunch of people out here just as crazy as us, right? And I don't know about for you, but this happened anytime I took a leap forward, like you're about to do with Simply Fresh Creative, and already doing by investing in it and everything. This little voice in the back of your head kind of tells you, "Hey, I'm not worthy, or I can't do this, or I'm not qualified, or whatever the case is." Man, when I transitioned from building my sales org and running my sales org to consulting, that was like a loud voice, and I know it wasn't easy for me to overcome that. And I know you've had some experience with that. So how do you overcome those insecurities?
I tell my mom this all the time. I'm a faith-based person. I believe in God, and I believe God's hands have been all over my life. There's so many things that have set me up to fail. Statistics would tell you I should not be anything. And I've been given all of this vision and all of this, like all these ideas. I'm a visionary through and through. I can see the road to where I want to go, and we're just missing pieces. It's almost like you have these dreams and you can't see the faces and you can't see the wheres, but you can see the thing happening. And I don't believe I was given that vision if I wasn't equipped to be able to carry it through. And so whatever happens, good or bad, somehow I always learn from it. And I've been better for it. The things that should have completely torn me down have made me better. And to me, that's like the greatest blessing I could ever speak to. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for with that question, but yeah,
no, it's perfect. I mean, yeah, when I think a lot of us can look back and say, damn, how the hell did we get here? Like statistics would not support this at all. I mean, what is it? I mean, Gary Vee talks about it all the time, right? Like 1 in 384 billion is the chances that you would have ever been born or something like that. And
Yeah.
then as you look at the disease and sickness and, disabilities and conditions that are out there, and we have all of our functions, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
then on top of that, we started a business, right? I think, how many years are you in? You're in this
9.
business, yeah, 9 years, but overall, like 12 years, right?
Yeah.
And same thing for me. And what is it, like 17% of businesses make it past 5 years, and then even less past 10. And we're both past 10 now. So it's like the anomaly just went through the roof. Doesn't even exist. The number is infinite at this point.
Yeah. I think, speaking back to what we talked about earlier, it's like the purpose for me at least isn't the money. The money's a good way to keep score, but I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm measured in like how many people's lives I've been able to touch. I've got some really great friendships, some really great people that I have built a life with. My wife, who came into my life when I was just in the verge of not thinking I was worth much of anything, and she's been so supportive. And there I remember nights I would come home early on. I was just like, I don't know if this is. She's like, you'll be fine. Tomorrow will be better,
Mhm.
and it's been great for our relationship because as she's gone through her career and she's watched me like striving for more, she's demanded more of herself, and she's like been overachieving and been doing all these things. And then you add that to my vision. I'm like, man, where we're going, like the amount of, and she works in the health network. So the
Yeah.
amount of people's lives we're going to get to touch collectively as a unit, and the relationships we've built since we've been together. Um, like I said, blessing. There's no way, there's not a hand on my life leading me this way, leading me to her, blessed with great parents. Like
Mhm.
there's no way. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Statistically, it's impossible.
It's crazy. Like you said, you know, you're a man of faith. I'm in the same boat. And when I look at me and my wife and the balance that we strike, it's insane. And the timing of the balance. It's not just who she is and who I am and how we fit together like a puzzle piece. It's like when I'm strong or when she's weak, I happen to be strong in that moment. And when I'm weak, she happens to be strong in that moment. And it's like, you have instinct and intuition that you need to be the strong person in that moment. But at the same time, there's things going on in our lives separately, in her business and in my business, that could only be divine, right? In order for us to be there the way we need to be there for each other, you know? And you see those things happening, you kind of reflect on them. And this is where, whatever your morning routine is, this is where it comes in handy that you actually think about these things and kind of walk through like, well, how did yesterday even happen? Where my wife all of a sudden made an extra 2 grand in her business when, we were short of the
Hmm.
mortgage or whatever the case was. But then, 6 months later, I made an extra 10 grand and we were able to buy a car cash. You know what I'm saying? Like the timing of all this, but her business isn't bringing anything now. And so you see the hand in your life, as you said, oftentimes when things like that happen. So I think that's incredibly, incredibly true. All right. Deep enough for this podcast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, but it is. I mean, at the end of the day, the podcast I get the most feedback on is the one where we go deep into stuff like that. And so I appreciate you being vulnerable with me on that.
Yeah,
Okay, so if you would entertain me, you know what I mean?
yeah.
I'm gonna take full advantage of you being on the show and ask you what your experience has been like going through consulting now. We're about 3 weeks to 4 weeks in. Uh and then if you had any feedback for me as well.
Yeah, no, there's so many. I told you this early on. I feel like I'm a natural salesperson. It's because I don't try to sell. I
Uh-huh.
really try to like understand somebody's needs. The goal isn't to sell you; it's really to like assess. And so I personally don't have or haven't had the capability to be able to lead or build a sales team around me. And there's so many great holes that you've been showing us in that process. And my partner has 30 years of sales experience as well, but we're busy in the business. And I
Mhm.
think, we talked last year and it was just not we weren't in the position that we were, but we had a record year last year. And
Yeah.
this was one of the things that like I set the goal for. This
Mhm.
happened. these are the things we're going to invest in next year. And those things happen.
Right.
And it came, and simple things that should be like things I should know. and I probably naturally do with some customers. You're just making us more aware. So
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's been a blessing. There's so many good things. To me, I think I told you on our first call when we discussed everything that was being delivered, I was like, that's it. I know I know friends who've worked with you, my buddy Brent, my
Yeah.
buddy Chris, and and I know the impact you've had on their business. And so it was like, once I saw that, I was like, man, I think it's tremendous value. I know we're going to be doing some more things together in the future. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can't speak high enough. And we're not even finished. So
Yeah. We're just getting started. And
exactly.
I'm again, like I said, I'm particularly excited about your project because, again, we get to kind of teach your customers how to sell through these amazing designs and wraps that you're doing, and
Yeah.
also impart some of that wisdom that we're putting into your sales program to them. Um, but what you were saying earlier, I want to point out, and so it's often the greatest salespeople that are like, well, I'm an
Terrible
amazing
teachers.
sales. What's that?
Terrible teachers.
Yes. And well, it's not even that you're a terrible teacher. Like you probably, when it comes to teaching car wraps, are amazing, but you had to learn that it wasn't natural. And
Mhm,
because you had to learn it versus it became natural, you're a great teacher of it because you knew what it took for you to learn it. You know what I'm
mhm,
saying? You knew you
mhm,
had to have 10 steps. You know
mhm,
what I'm saying? And so, but when it comes to teaching sales, it's like, well, I just do it. I don't know how I do it. I don't know why. I don't know the steps behind it. It's just natural that I flow through the conversation and I get to the customer's dominant buying motive and I close them on that. You know what I'm
mhm.
saying? It's a
Yeah.
natural thing for great salespeople, but it's not scalable, right? Because going out and finding another you can be incredibly hard. You know what I'm saying?
And I'm
And
sure he'd wanna
so
have his own thing.
e- exactly. If he's
Yeah.
really that good, long term, he's going to have his own thing, which is fine. I talk about opportunity structure, and sometimes your company is just a step in their ladder. You know what I mean? And we all need to be okay with that. But in your case, I'm incredibly excited because you're not just selling car wraps; you're selling branding and design and changing people's companies in the process. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And taking their value through the roof. So I think that's huge. And then the second thing you talked about was, from last year to this year was like, oh damn, that's it, you know? And so obviously I was a brand new consultant a year ago. Well, brand new. I was about 6 months in a year ago. And now I'm, a little over 18 months in, and I've found a lot of leverage with my team. You know what I'm saying? So I'm able to kind of bring pricing down, spend less time on certain things, you know what I mean? And leverage technology, leverage chat GPT. Now that that's huge, you know what I'm saying? Leverage a lot of the previous stuff that I've done, so
Well, and
like
you've
in your
gotten better.
case. Yeah,
Just
exactly.
all around, you've gotten better so that you
Hmm.
found the shortcuts and the places to save times and the things that are the most impactful. I mean,
Yeah.
that transitions to any skill set.
Hmm.
So,
Absolutely. And what I one of the things that one of the core principles that I market on is giving value, giving away the formula, right? And then when they want you to do it yourself, then you charge them for it, right? And so, and it's the same thing with this. It's like there's a lot of things, other things that I could have included but didn't because I know I can give you guys the sample and y'all got the design ability. You guys have the systems ability and all that type of stuff that y'all can recreate it yourself if you just given an example of it.
yeah.
And so I think that's one of the things as salespeople we need to recognize when our clients can bridge the gaps that will save
Mhm.
them money essentially in the
Well, and that's why
process.
we put that package in there where you do the heavy lifting, you do the brand research, you do the market research, you bring us all of your competitors, you bring us everything, all the stuff that we would typically do. If you take care
Hmm.
of that, then it's less. But if you
Yeah.
want us to do that and then present stuff and hope that we got exactly what you're looking for, that there's time investment there, and so that increases cost.
Yeah, I think that's a massive sales principle that we're talking about right now is like, and it comes down to transparency, right?
Hmm.
Transparency and what takes a lot of your time and what doesn't. And if they're able to leverage some of their employees or contacts or whatever the case is, relationships, in order to take some of that time off your plate. You know what I mean? Because like I was showing you guys my calendar earlier, right? And I wasn't, I was just trying to schedule our next call. And you guys were like, oh no, that's a crazy looking calendar. But it actually is very organized, right?
Super organized.
And so, you know, as a product offering, when you have a high ticket offer, or you know, you're offering a wrap or whatever the case is, and I think what you're doing with your business is the same thing. Like you're upgrading your dollar per hour that you're earning in your business by expanding to design and focusing on design. You know what I'm saying? Versus, all right, when my company is wrapping a car versus when my company is working on design, this is a much more impactful, much more legacy play product than a car wrap. You know what I'm saying? Which again, impactful, but if there's not good design behind it, then
Yeah.
you're not serving the customers the way that you feel you should be.
Well, and I think I used this example early on in our calls. It's like, you know, you pay an architect and you pay a builder. They are not the
Mhm,
same people. They do not do the same work.
mhm,
Where would you prefer to save? Do you want to save on the guy who's designing this for you, or do you want to save on the
mhm.
guy who's installing it? You probably don't want to skimp out on either, to be truthful. But one of those ways is gonna shift your pricing. So what do you want to give up? And I think the thing that we've suggested a lot of customers to do is this: if you want to save now, let's do the design first. Let me do a scaled back version for you, but let's do all of the identity first. And then if maybe the budget was only 5,000, let's do the design part first. Let's maybe spend $1,000 and get you some decals, get you down the road, and then make it a goal for you at the end of the year that we actually finish doing the installation, because all the heavy lifting has been done, right? You don't
Right.
want to pay for a simple design, pay for all the simple graphics, and then, oh, and now I want to start over. So now all of your business cards, your uniforms, all that stuff all has to be finished. And a big pet peeve of mine, I'll just kind of tell people right now, is this: be the one who's calling for your business. Don't hand that off to like somebody to get to you, because numbers do not tell the story.
Mhm.
um, as far as getting the impact, right? If your assistant is checking, she's just going to get you numbers. Numbers
Yeah.
don't tell the whole picture. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things we talked about too, is like I've one of the objections is I've got to take this to the decision maker and I'll get back to you kind of thing. Well, I don't want you to take this because you're not going to do it justice. Let's be
Yeah,
honest here.
exactly.
You're just going to give them the numbers, you know?
Exactly.
And so the way that we overcome that objection is, all right, let's set a second call with the decision maker, or let's make
Mhm,
sure they're on the call in the first place, right? And that's
exactly.
where we go back to the appointment setter that's setting that appointment, making sure the decision makers are on the call, because it does. We're not just talking about some decals on a vehicle and what's the cheapest price we can get. We're talking about your brand and the impact you're going to have in the world, you know,
Mhm.
which that is a visionary integrator conversation, not a marketing manager conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like
I
an
mean,
admin.
yeah, I mean, if you have a marketing manager in a company, typically you're at the size where they might actually have an impact, but
Yeah.
it shouldn't be reduced to numbers. Like I said, it's a higher level. It's going to be a bigger impact in your business. It's going to save you marketing dollars on ad spend. It's there across the board. It's going to give you a lot more value than just the numbers.
100%. So speaking of impact, that brings us to our last two-part question, which is what does legacy mean to you? And what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Oh, that's a heavy one. I don't know if we've had this conversation. Probably one of the biggest impacts on my life has been my grandfather on my dad's side of the family, his funeral.
Hmm.
Um, I was at that funeral and I watched dozens, if not hundreds, of people get up and speak to the man that he was. And ever since that moment, I can remember thinking like, I hope my life is good enough and I impact enough people that they will get up and speak to me and tell my daughter and her kids about the man that I was to them. Not just the man I was to obviously to them. Obviously, I want to be the best father, grandfather, whatever in the future as possible. But that just for whatever reason had such an impact on me. If you were hungry, he fed you. If you needed something, he helped you. And I've always tried to live that way. Even before that moment, I've always tried to give probably more than I should in a lot of circumstances. But so as far as legacy, that's been the biggest thing to me. As far as I want to impact as many lives as possible. I want to know that I've given people opportunities that they maybe wouldn't have had without me, or changed mindsets. I know I've spoken a couple of people off those late night phone calls where they were not feeling the best about themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for those opportunities, because I've been in the dark places that those people have been. And to me, like pain only has value if you can save someone else from it, right? That's what gives it purpose. And so that's why I'm thankful for those moments of where I was in that place, because now I can actually connect with those people. I don't know if that answers all of that question. Did I
It
get the
does.
second? Okay.
And it's a conversation that I had with my father-in-law, and it goes beautifully with this, which is, because he was struggling with, why does God let bad things happen, right? And what you talked about, because you went through those dark places, you're now able to serve others, right?
Mhm.
And when we think about Jesus, like on the cross, that's the darkest place you could have ever gone.
Mm.
Completely innocent, just destroyed by the very people you're trying to save, physically destroyed, right? And
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 still
and and,
doing
and
so
somewhat
freely
spiritually.
and willingly.
Yeah, and like disheartened. But that was the way he was going to impact all of us. None of us can like dismiss that sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? And so the same thing with you going to those dark places, and then when they call you, you know where they are. You can
Mhm.
speak to it. You have that experience, and
Yeah.
that's the purpose that it served in the first place. You know, and so I love it so much. And then I had another guest have a similar answer, and he was from I think Iran, and he lives in Canada now, and he's got a real estate team that's doing like 500 million a year or something like that. And he talked about his father's funeral, and this is obviously your grandfather, but he talked about his father's funeral and like how a whole town, like 3 towns away, people came to his father's funeral. You know what I'm saying? And the impact that it had on him. And so you're in good company. You know what I'm saying? Is is all I'm pointing out. I
Yeah.
found some good motivation behind
Awesome.
that reasoning, and it is, I completely understand where you're coming from. It's like, and I've gone through all this stuff, and I've come out the other side, and at the end of the day, we're incredibly blessed. We have these challenges, but we have these challenges because we place them there. You know what I'm saying? Like we could probably do the same every year for the rest of our lives and live an amazing, beautiful life. You know, but we
Yeah.
place these challenges there for a reason, and it's to have the impact that you're talking about having. So
Cool.
awesome,
Forged
brother.
in, forged in fire, right? Like
Hmm.
nothing gets made better through a simple life. It's what. Oh, never mind. I won't get into that. But free things have no value. I don't want to turn this into a weird
Yeah.
apologetic. So, but free things just don't have value, right? Things that are earned, things that are won, things that are like fought and you achieve for. Those are the things that actually give you value. The money's cool, but but everything else you fight for.
I couldn't agree more, brother. And that's a good note to end it on. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on the podcast and taking time out of your day and saying good things about me. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, easy to say. Excited to be on. Like I've been a long time listener since our first conversation, and I
mhm,
picked up some nuggets along the way. So hopefully, I've been able to impart some of those on somebody else.
you definitely have, brother. All right, let's get building, guys.
All right.